But this one is not very long. I may yap on it because it's about a topic that I really kind of like, but I think I'll be okay with the 2 videos that I'm gonna do. But this one is I do think this is gonna be fun. Chat, this one is gonna be 10 movie post-credit scenes that lied to us. You know, the post-credit scene that Marvel introduced and now literally every fucking major Hollywood movie has to fucking have. So this is post-credit scenes that just flat out lied to us and basically went nowhere. So, let's see what they are.
Post-credit sequences can be a way to elegantly time multiple movies together and get audiences well hyped for them, but they can also be nothing more than big fibs. Now, it's not that studios intentionally lie to audiences and promise things that will never happen, it's just that the nature of big-budget filmmaking means that nothing is ever set in stone, and as such, plans for sequels can change massively and make directors wish that they hadn't promised something that they can't deliver on. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 post-credit scenes that lied. Number 10.
Robosmart, you are correct. There are movies that did do it before Marvel. Marvel mainstreamed the fuck out of it. Marvel is what caused movies to cause that to become mainstream and the norm. Is what I was referring to on that.
Monica Fuentes is coming back. Fast 5. Fast 5 may be one of the strongest entries into the franchise, but it also commits arguably one of its greatest sins, by implying the return of a legacy character which ultimately never came to pass. Its mid-credits scene sees Hobbs being handed a dossier by Monica Fuentes, who previously appeared as the female lead way back in Too Fast, Too Furious. Beyond the dossier revealing that Letty was still alive, the scene seemed to suggest that Monica was making a return to the franchise, and would be back for future sequels in some capacity. But lo and behold, Eva Mendez's spunky federal agent has yet to resurface. Ultimately, Mendez chose to retire from acting a few years after Fast Five's release to raise her family. As it stands though, this post-credit scene felt like an outright confirmation that
Okay, I've never seen Fast 5, so chat, I'm gonna need your help with this. Did this post-credit scene make it seem, if you've seen Fast 5, did this post-credit scene make it seem like she was returning to the franchise, or did it feel more like Cameo, where they were baiting Letty's return? Yeah, that's right, because on his face, not having seen this, not having seen the movie, not having seen the scene, this feels like it was more like Cameo Easter egg kind of situation, not exactly baiting that she was returning to the franchise. So you think it was more of a cameo so when you guys actually saw it, it felt more cameo than bait of her return. Okay, having not even seen this and just looking at this, that's what it feels like to me.
Monica was back, only for her to vanish without a trace immediately afterwards. Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only, The Spy Who Loved Me. The end credits of Roger Moore's third James Bond film, The Spy Who Loved Me, customarily informed audiences that 007 will return, as was the tradition at the time, and also confirmed the title of the next Bond film. In this case, the credits stated that Moore's fourth outing as Bond would be in For Your Eyes Only. Yet due to the phenomenal commercial success of Star Wars the very same summer, a swift change of course was decided. In order to capitalize on Star Wars fever, Bond's sci-fi jaunt Moonraker was rushed into production, impressively releasing less than 2 years after The Spy Who Loved Me, despite its massively complex and expensive production. The film was a strong commercial success and was followed up by For Your Eyes Only as originally planned, much to the relief of anyone who found the franchise's sci-fi detour a little too silly, even for the standards of Moore era.
Yeah, Cortez, number 1, does it really count as a post-credit scene? And number 2, it's stretching the concept of, it lied to us. Because, well, yeah, they did Moonraker instead of For Your Eyes Only, but For Your Eyes Only still came out afterwards. So this is really stretching the idea that, well, it lied to us. If you really fucking squint, maybe you could say, okay, they lied because Moonraker came out next, not For Your Eyes Only, but still, it's like, well, David, Moonraker was a James Bond movie. It was basically it was the movie that came out after The Spy Who Loved Me. They next came out with Moonraker, which was a James Bond movie about him going into space. And then after that, they did the For Your Eyes Only that they were advertising at the end of the movie. That's basically it.
Bond. Number 8, Skynet Lives, Terminator Genisys.
Oh, here we go.
Terminator Genisys is an interesting example of a post-credit scene that went nowhere. It wasn't a result of a sequel never being made, but rather because the sequel decided to blast its events out of continuity pretty much altogether. The 5th Terminator film ends with the post-credits revelation that the new version of Skynet, an operating system called Genisys, survived the heroes' attempts to destroy it, its core system still active in a deep underground chamber. This was obviously setting up a sequel where Skynet/Genisys, physically embodied by Matt Smith, would be the overarching antagonist. But due to Genisys' lackluster critical and commercial performance, the franchise soon shifted gears. The 6th film, Terminator Dark Fate, decided to forget the events of the previous 3 films in the series,
was gone
serving
entirely
as a direct sequel instead to Terminator 2, and creating a new continuity where Skynet was permanently destroyed after T2. The twist here, well, a new AI called Legion rises up to take Skynet's place, though its presentation
they oh my god, they completely fucked up Terminator. They have completely screwed it up. Like, Terminator 3 was not great to begin with. Okay, Terminator 3 was okay. And at the very least, from a continuity standpoint, Terminator 3 the way Terminator 3 ended is like, there was no changing the future to begin with anyway. The future is basically going to continue, and that's how Terminator 3 ended. You know, Judgment Day still happened. John still has to become the great leader. So you are never going to be able to change the events anyway. The whole goal of the Terminator going back was to just keep him alive so he could continue and do what he did. It wasn't a great movie. It was okay, but at least stayed on point. And then Terminator 5, and then this one comes into play, and they start doing it's no longer Terminator, it's no longer Skynet, it's Genisys, which a lot of people did not fucking like, because just like John Connor is a core staple of the Terminator franchise, fucking Skynet is a core tenet of the Terminator franchise. Pulling Skynet away is literally removing a core character from the franchise. It literally was. No, I'm not forgetting about Terminator Salvation, Grindhouse. Terminator Salvation was kinda sorta its own thing. Kinda sorta. Yes, it was in the Terminator franchise, but the Terminator Salvation was an attempt to basically rejuvenate the franchise by, okay, let's stop sending Terminators back in time to protect John Connor. Let's actually show John Connor actually fighting in the war against the machines, becoming the great general, and maybe even ultimately defeating the machines. And unfortunately, it didn't do well. It wasn't, I wouldn't call it a filler movie, Ruff, because I think they actually planned a trilogy. It's just Salvation did not do well enough to warrant a continuation. And even the rules in 4, Atashi, the closed loop still applied to 4, because 4 was John in the future. The machines were rising. He was working on fighting back. So the closed loop was still present. But then they did Terminator 5 with this bullshit, and now all of a sudden it's no longer Skynet, it's Genisys. And they try to play upon nostalgia by rebooting the beginning of the first Terminator movie. And it just, in general, just started to piss everyone off. And then they did Dark Fate. And then they did Dark Fate. They killed off fucking John Connor at the beginning of the fucking movie. The guy who's supposed to be the hero. They kill him the fuck off. Because they have to make room for their strong female character. Who don't need no man. And is going to save the human race. They said, fuck John Connor. Fuck that male. We need to put a strong, independent woman as the leader of the human resistance. And yeah, they also made him the bad guy in Genisys. They infected him with the computer virus and turned him into a bad guy Terminator. Like, oh my fucking god, did they screw this up in the worst way possible. And yeah, I guess they ended it by like, oh, Genisys could still be there. And then in Dark Fate, oh, fuck Genisys. Now it's actually Legion that's in charge of everything. And Sarah Connor has basically become a man-hating bitch. Well, and that was the heartbreaking thing, said. We did have a strong woman. We had Sarah Connor. And they brought Linda motherfucking Hamilton back for Dark Fate. And you could have had Linda Hamilton back kicking ass, being Sarah fucking Connor. And no, what did they do? They turned her into a man-hating bitch who's just like, they think a woman's job's only just to pump out babies. Like, my job was just to pump out the savior of the human race. And they turned her into a man-hating bitch. And of course they had to, because they had to kill off John so they could basically take this. I think I never saw the movie, but I've seen enough reviews about it. They basically killed John Connor because he was a white guy. And God forbid you can't have a white guy saving the human race in modern Hollywood. So instead, the savior of the human race is, drumroll please, an illegal immigrant girl. A girl that was an illegal immigrant to the United States from Mexico is the savior of humanity, instead of John Connor, who has been the savior of humanity for the last five fucking movies. Because modern Hollywood, right? So yeah, they starting with Terminator 5, they basically just said, fuck the franchise, modern audience.
Isn't even remotely similar to the Skynet/Genisys that we see in Terminator Genisys.
If only Atanashi.
This, of course, is a classic case of a studio.
Yeah, the message. I have no idea if I was able to do a good Scottish accent there or not, but yes.
Hedging their bets on a new creative direction that fans just weren't interested in, only to then replace it with another a few years later, one which unfortunately also didn't go down particularly well with most fans either. Number 7, it's the end of the Askewniverse, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Okay, so this one is pretty funny and at least pretty weird. 2001's stoner comedy Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was the 5th entry into Kevin Smith's View Askewniverse, and its post-credit scene features a cameo by God herself, aka Alanis Morissette, and I don't mean that metaphorically by the way, who quite literally closes the book on the Askewniverse. The clear implication, of course, was that Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back would be the final entry into Smith's stoner comedy franchise, and though this seemed to be the case for a little while, 5 years later, Clerks 2 was eventually released and reopened this book. Since then, we've also had an animated film, Jay and Silent Bob's super groovy cartoon movie, as well as Jay and Silent Bob Reboot and Clerks 3, given that the Askewniverse continues to be Smith's bread and butter IP, which he returns to in between experimenting elsewhere.
And from what I heard, the Clerks 3, Clerks 2, I actually didn't hear too much about. Clerks 3, I don't think I actually heard anything about that either. The Jay and Silent Bob was it bad? It looked like it was bad. I have no interest in seeing it. I didn't even see Clerks 2, honestly. I didn't really have any interest in seeing Clerks 2. Clerks 3 looked bad. Like, really bad from the trailers. And the Jay and Silent Bob show? Or movie? Hang on.
This book. Since then, we've also...
Wait, hang on.
entry into Smith's stoner comedy franchise.
Hang on a second.
And though this seemed to be the case for a little while, 5 years later, Clerks 2 was eventually released and reopened this book. Since then, we've also had an animated film, Jay and Silent Bob's super groovy cartoon movie, as well as Jay.
Here we go. God, these two do not look healthy. Like Jason Mewes, I know, did have a very significant drug problem. And I think Kevin Smith did get him help, got him into rehab, and I believe got him clean. And I think he's still clean. So it's understandable that Jason Mewes probably doesn't look great, because he did have a very serious drug addiction problem. And Kevin Smith did get him help, but, you know, drugs, they age you. They absolutely age you. Kevin Smith, I know he did lose a lot of weight, but god damn, he looks unhealthy. He looks so fucking unhealthy right now. He's a vegan? There you go. There's your explanation. He went fucking vegan. Like, wonderful that he lost the weight. I do know that he lost a shit ton of weight, but you can see he lost weight in a poor way. Because look at him. He looks emaciated. He absolutely looks emaciated. And yeah, Alistair, he absolutely still owes Cloudfish an apology that he's never going to give. He absolutely does. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, Kevin Smith did the Netflix He-Man animated films and Clownfish TV Grindhouse, that's a YouTube channel. Clownfish called out the He-Man animated series as that it was absolute fucking garbage and that it was not going to do well. And they called out all the problems that were there with it. And Kevin Smith basically, like, called out Clownfish by name and, like, gave him a bunch of shit online. And guess what happened? Clownfish was 100%. Neon and Geeky were 100% right in how they called the He-Man. They said it was going to flop hard. Nobody was going to like it because of those reasons. And it did exactly that. And Kevin never apologized for calling them out. Well, it's Clownfish's Neon and Geeky branded. But yeah, he did not apologize to them.
And Silent Bob reboot and Clerks 3, given that the Askewniverse continues to be Smith's bread and butter IP, which he returns to in between experimenting elsewhere, it was most certainly a premature move to so literally close the book on the franchise a whole 20 years ago. Number 6, Mr. Sinister is coming, and so much more. The X-Men franchise.
Yeah!
Alright, strap in, because when it comes to the X-Men franchise, it's full of post-credit scenes that either go nowhere or are only
I know exactly what this is talking about, too.
Stand, which ends with the recently deceased Charles Xavier now inhabiting the body of a coma patient, but by the time he turns up in the credits of The Wolverine, he has his old body back somehow.
Yes! Like, Fox fucked up a lot of this. At the end of Last Stand, they tease us, like, the beginning of The Last Stand, Charles is talking to Moira, because this is Moira McTaggart. Charles is talking to Moira, who is at Muir Island in Scotland, and she has this coma patient, and there's talk about possibly transferring consciousness and everything like that. And then, Charles dies in The Last Stand. Jean Grey basically disintegrates him. And then in the post-credit scene, it's, Moira's here with this coma patient, and you hear Patrick Stewart's voice that's supposed to be coming from this coma patient go, Moira. It was Patrick Stewart's voice. Yes, it absolutely was Patrick Stewart's voice. And he goes, Moira. And she looks up like, oh my God. And then it was supposed to imply that he was able to transfer his consciousness into this coma patient's body, which they alluded to at the beginning. And it never happened because in X-Men Origins, Charles shows up as himself. So they basically took that whole concept and went fucking nowhere with it. They basically ignored that it ever happened. Because after this post-credit scene, you know what movie came next after this? Days of Future Past, when they're all in the future. So this went, no. Not that, and honestly, I don't think a lot of people cared, honestly. This is one that I think a lot of people actually really didn't care too much about the fact that it didn't go anywhere. Realistically speaking. Because you got Days of Future Past, which was basically, killing X-Men porn, essentially. Because that's what a big chunk of Days of Future Past was. It was like the Sentinels killing off the X-Men over and over again.
Somehow. And no, don't tell me it's his twin. That was never ever explained in the movie itself. In the movies, it's just a plot thread that was clearly dropped, so the audience didn't have to worry about the logistics of him now being alive. Speaking of the Wolverine, though, that movie ends with a stinger that's supposed to lead into Days of Future Past. Here, though, it teases that Wolverine will keep his bone claws that he sports in the finale of that movie. But the sequel then reverts him back to his adamantium knives, at least for the future segments, which this is supposed to follow into. The timeline here also suggests that these Sentinels hunting down mutants crisis is just about to kick off following the end of the Wolverine. But in Days of Future Past, we learned that these Sentinels have apparently been around since the 70s, despite never being mentioned or seen, even though they're a huge threat. The two flicks do connect in the...
They seriously Fox played seriously fast and loose with the timelines. And I know the reason for it. The reason they played fast and loose with the timelines is because they were trying to roll Days of Future Past into an X-Men reboot. That's why. Because don't forget, after Days of Future Past, that rolled into X-Men First Class. That's what they ended up doing. Is they did Days of Future Past, which introduced the young Magneto and the young Charles Xavier. And it rolled it, and then after Days of Future Past ended, they did First Class. And so they were basically trying to reboot the franchise. And unfortunately, it didn't do great. Wait, was it? Am I getting the order mixed up? I thought they did First Class after Days of Future Past. Was it? No, you're right. Fuck, you're right. You're right. I'm incorrect. I am wrong. I'm getting them mixed up, the order mixed up. God damn it. Well, it's easy to do with. Well, you're right. First Class did come out before Days of Future Past because First Class resulted in Magneto going to the Max prison, the plastic prison, and Days of Future Past, they break him out. It was one of the first things that they do when Logan goes back into the past is they break him out. I forgot about that. How bad. Is it, or am I thinking of Apocalypse? No, I'm not thinking of Apocalypse. No, they did X-Men First Class. The conclusion of First Class was Magneto ended up getting put in prison. Why did he? No, he got put in prison because he was going to be sending missiles he was going to be like sending a fuck ton of missiles at a country, I thought. Cause didn't they bust him out of jail in Days of Future Past? I think I might be. I'm trying to remember where they busted him out of prison. Because that wasn't First Class. And it wasn't the X-Men Apocalypse. I'm pretty sure that was Days of Future Past. No, Kaibo. The young version of himself. It was the young version. Yeah, they did. Because in Days of Future Past, Logan takes Xavier to get Quicksilver, and Quicksilver busts Magneto out of prison. Yeah. So you had First Class, and thank you, Heckle. So yeah, they have First Class, and at the end of First Class, Magneto goes to the plastic prison because at the end of it, Charles is doing the chest thing. That with Magneto, like they did with Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, and then with Days of Future Past, the first thing that they do is bust him out, and then he goes, no, except That was the second X-Men. But in Days of Future Past, they bust him out when he's young. Because Days of Future Past is okay, quick and dirty. Days of Future Past was an actual comic book storyline for the X-Men back in the 80s, I believe it was. It was an actual storyline where Kitty Pryde, Rachel Summers, the Phoenix, sends her consciousness back in time to her younger self. And the purpose of it is to try and stop the assassination of Senator Kelly, which would cause the Sentinels to be unleashed upon the world, and the Sentinels would round up and either put mutants into concentration camps or kill them. And in the movie Days of Future Past, the Wolverine is sent back into the past by Kitty Pryde, which they really fucked this up. So it's wibbly wobbly, tiny whiny. And 11, thank you for the raid. Sorry, I was rolling. Thank you for the raid, 11. How's it going? How is stream? She can't, Robo. Fox fucked with Kitty Pryde's power set in Days of Future Past. They gave her Rachel Summers, the Phoenix's power set that allowed her to send Wolverine's consciousness back through time. It was just, Fox boily fucked with the X-Men and their whole power sets. Oh, yes, Blood. Yes, I do. I absolutely do. And thank you, Echo.
Magneto didn't go to prison in First Class. In between First Class and Days of Future Past, Magneto went to prison because they thought he killed JFK when he was trying to save him. In Days, they broke him out.
Okay, that's the part that I forgot about, Grindhouse. That's the part I forgot about. It was an in-between movie thing. No, Rachel Summers was not introduced in the movies. Yeah, I forgot about that part. Okay. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough about this. But I do also know where they're going to talk about the Mr. Sinister part.
Broad strokes, but not as direct sequels, and if you try to piece them together in a proper timeline, you'll only get a headache. The worst of the bunch, though, is X-Men Apocalypse, which ends with a tantalizing post-credits tease.
This part, where the Essex Corporation comes in to clean up after the results of X-Men Apocalypse. And for those of you that don't know, the Essex Corporation is in reference to Sinister's real name, which is Nathaniel Essex, who is one of the X-Men's biggest bad guys.
Which sets up X-23 being created from Wolverine's DNA in Logan, but also promised Mr. Sinister as the next big bad in Fox's X-Men franchise. Now, he was supposed to show up in Logan until director James Mangold opted not to include him, and he was scheduled to appear in a post-credit scene in The New Mutants, as played by John Hamm, but that was never filmed, and finally...
Okay. I could see why they didn't want to put John Hamm as Mr. Sinister in the post-credit scene. I actually can understand why they would not do that, because by the time New Mutants was being made, New Mutants was the last X-Men movie Fox ever made. And spoiler alert, it did absolutely shitty. Well, okay, Pirate, again, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Well, Grindhouse, John Hamm is in Deadpool. That's why. John Hamm played oh fuck, what's his name? Sugar Bear. Fuck, what's his name? No. Oh my god, I'm blanking on the character's name. Peter, yes. Thank you, J10. Yeah, John Hamm was Peter in the Deadpool movies. Thank you, Heckle. So I can see why, and Deadpool was going over to the MCU, so I could see them not putting John Hamm as Sinister at in a post-credit sequence of New Mutants because he's Peter. And that could fuck things up with Deadpool. So I absolutely can understand why they elected not to do that. What? I'm pretty sure it is. Who plays Peter then? I thought for sure that was John Hamm. Who's the actor then? Who am I getting him confused with? But I'm confusing with Rob Delaney. Oh, I'm getting them mixed up. They do look similar. Okay, you gotta admit there's a little bit of similarity between them. It's easy to get them mixed up. I get them mixed up. No, he's not. He is not, Jimmy. He is not the evil TVA agent.
He was also meant to play a major part in the Gambit solo movie, which was cancelled entirely, so yeah, another lie.
Yeah.
Number 5, Jack Sparrow is basically doomed. Pirates of the Caribbean on
What?
Stranger Tides. The 4th Pirates of the Caribbean film ends with Jack Sparrow marooning his former love Angelica on a desert island because he doesn't know if he can trust her. The post-credits scene shows Angelica stranded on the island when, all of a sudden, a voodoo doll of Jack created by her father Blackbeard washes up ashore and she looks at it with menacing intent. The implication here was obvious, that Angelica would be back to torment Jack in the 5th film, using the voodoo doll to get her revenge and enact her will upon the pirates. But when the 5th film, Dead Men Tell No Tales, arrived in 2017, Angelica was nowhere to be seen, nor was she or her voodoo doll ever mentioned again. Though some fans have used the voodoo doll to explain some of Sparrow's allegedly out-of-character moments in the 5th film, we sadly never got to see a pissed-off Angelica dealing out comedic vengeance on an unsuspecting Jack.
That is an interesting theory, that Jack acting out of character was due to her use of the voodoo doll. I actually kind of like that idea more than, like, oh, they just forgot about her and she could have killed them. It's like a little bit of mistake that kind of works. Kinda. You know, it makes for a fun little headcanon, honestly. Yeah, it's a fun little take, it's a fun little headcanon to play with. It is a shame, I mean, it's kind of a shame that they didn't bring her back. But it is what it is.
Number 4. Thanos courts death, The Avengers. The original Avengers movie, of course, ends with the superhero supergroup repelling the Chitauri's attempted invasion of Earth. In the mid-credit scene, we see their leader, the Other, telling Thanos that to challenge them is to court death. Now, director Joss Whedon, being a huge comic book fan and all, he was clearly here nodding towards the fact that, in the comics, Thanos' quest to annihilate half of all life in the universe was initially...
Okay, hold up. I'm sorry, no. Okay, let me get into this first. Someone telling Thanos to challenge them is to court death. I'm sorry, I did not take that to mean that Thanos was literally looking to court death. I did not. Maybe it could be, you could classify as an inside joke, Crimson. That I'll buy. That is like, okay, there's like an inside joke for fans that know the history behind it, haha. But I'm sorry, I don't think it was written for that. Thank you, Eleven. Get some good sleep. Yeah, so for those of you that don't understand the concept, so Death is an actual character in the Marvel Universe. Death is a quote-unquote person, so to speak. You know, the embodiment of death. And Thanos loves death. No, Victor, I'm about to explain this. In the comics, Thanos actually does want to court Lady Death. He loves Lady Death. And so he does everything he can to be with her. Problem is, Lady Death is wet for Deadpool. Like, Lady Death loves Deadpool. And absolutely wants to be with Deadpool. And Deadpool loves Lady Death. And Thanos gets super pissed about this, and because of this, he actually makes Deadpool was already functionally immortal, but Thanos makes Deadpool actually immortal, so he and Lady Death could never be together. So there was literally a love triangle between Thanos, Lady Death, and Deadpool, which is why I was so hoping and praying that we would get some kind of cameo in like Avengers Endgame with Deadpool. Like just a tiny little cameo of Deadpool showing up and go, that's my girl, right? It's something like that. I was hoping, we never got it, but yeah, but this scene right here, where one of his minions says, to attack them, you are courting death. No, I'm sorry. Comic book fans, like, kind of go, ha ha, cute double entendre. But no one actually believed that Joss Whedon was actually alluding to Thanos literally courting death in a romantic way. Nobody thought that with the Avengers movie.
It's the fact that in the comics, Thanos' quest to annihilate half of all life in the universe was initially motivated by his desire to impress a mistress.
Oh, and he has a type.
Living embodiment of death in this universe. So the choice of words "court death" was evidently deliberate on Whedon's part to hint at Mistress Death's impending arrival in future movies. In the end, though, the Russo brothers, who went on to direct the other Avengers movies, decided that after much deliberation, Mistress Death was just too risky a character to implement, especially with Avengers Infinity War already having to juggle so many other characters. So they opted to streamline Thanos' story by removing Death entirely, and while it may have upset comic book purists hoping to see her in a live-action form, the Russos certainly got away with the change where more casual audiences were concerned. Number 3, coming soon, Airplane 3, Airplane 2, the sequel. Airplane 2, the sequel, wraps up with an amusing post-credits tease for another sequel with a tag proclaiming that Airplane 3 is in the works and on the way very soon. The tag is accompanied by a snippet of William Shatner's Commander Buck Murdoch paraphrasing the original film's iconic one-liner, "That's exactly what they'll be expecting us to do." And considering how quickly Airplane 2 was put together, there didn't seem much doubt that a third film would be on the way soon enough. And Paramount was already in talks with all of the principal cast and crew to return for the threequel before Airplane 2 had even come out. But those plans were scuppered for reportedly 2 reasons. First, the second film cost 4 times the original but barely made 15% of its $171 million box office haul. And secondly, according to series star Robert Hayes, he simply refused to return. Either way, it's amusing that Paramount never bothered to remove the tag from home video releases of the film, considering just how easy that would have been. In its own way, though, I suppose it kind of functions
as one Easter egg.
Final.
Yeah, this, like, Airplane 2 is far from the first movie to have a conclusionary title sequence that says so-and-so will return in this movie, in the sequel. Like, like Airplane, James Bond are far from the only ones that have done that and nothing has ever come about it. It's not so much like, okay, the movies lied to us. It's more of that, well, shit just fell through. You know? It happens.
Gag. Number 2, It's Still Alive, Cloverfield. Now this one's really cheeky. Found footage monster movie Cloverfield ends with the US military carpet bombing the hell out of Manhattan in an attempt to kill the titular monster. We don't see the outcome of this attack, though a slither of reversed audio that plays over the end credits seemingly reveals what happened to the monster Clover. When played backwards, a voice says it's still alive, seemingly confirming Clover's survival and the possibility of a direct sequel. However, this turned out to be nothing more than playful toying by the filmmakers, as producer J.J. Abrams later confirmed.
Crimson, it did. Cloverfield actually got 2 spiritual / direct sequels. 10 Cloverfield Lane, no, not Chronicle. 10 Cloverfield Lane was I would classify it as a spiritual sequel. Because the Cloverfield monster was never there. But it was a spiritual sequel, indicating something like it was like with aliens. So it never had the Cloverfield monster, but as I understand it, it was a spiritual sequel because it was done by the same people. And then you actually had what was it called? was it the Cloverfield Paradox? I think was the third one. Where that one, yeah, the Cloverfield Paradox was a sequel. They basically did the multiverse thing, because I'm pretty sure Cloverfield Paradox came out when Marvel was doing the multiverse thing, so I guess they were jumping on board. And they actually had the Cloverfield monster in the Cloverfield Paradox. Because the conclusion of the Cloverfield Paradox, literally the last shot of the movie is an escape pod rocketing down through the air, punching through a cloud cover, and then the Cloverfield monster literally bursting up through the clouds, roaring, and then swiping at the camera. And it was supposed to tie in both the Cloverfield Paradox as a whole and the original Cloverfield movie together, seeming to indicate that there might be another movie with the Cloverfield monster, and nothing ever came of it. So I would call that one, although it's not a post-credit scene, so that may be why it's not talked about here. Granted, I don't think that what they're talking about here with the audio play backwards saying it's still live is also post-credits. The audio in question that they're talking about happens just before the credits roll in the Cloverfield. So this also is not a post-credits scene either.
Confirmed that Clover was indeed killed by the military bombing run. Number 1, Mia and Ash will team up. Evil Dead 2013. 2013's Evil Dead may be a soft reboot of the iconic horror franchise.
I don't know about this one. Okay, to my understanding, Overlord is not in the same universe as Cloverfield. However, I have not seen Overlord, so I cannot say with any level of certainty. I was not aware of it being in the same universe, though. And this one, I don't think this is a post-credit scene either. I'm trying to remember if Bruce Campbell showed up before or after the credits.
This brief post-credit stinger suggested a clear desire on the part of the filmmakers to unite the two iterations of the IP. See, after the credits, there's a fleeting cameo from original franchise
it is after the credits.
Ash, who says his iconic line, "groovy," and turns to the camera. That's it, the end. Now, while you could freely interpret this as nothing more than just a cute Easter egg for franchise loyalists, many
think
fans
it was
believed
just
it
a
to be
cute
directly
Easter egg.
implying that Ash would be teaming up with the reboot's protagonist Mia in a future film. By director Fed Alvarez, who stated that he was indeed planning an Ash-Mia team-up movie, but plans were thrown into a tailspin after Sam Raimi proceeded with the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV series. After the show's cancellation, Bruce Campbell officially retired as Ash, in turn killing the planned crossover dead.
Yeah, I always saw the Bruce Campbell one, the Bruce Campbell appearance. I always viewed that as just being a cute little Easter egg. I do, because the whole thing is the conclusion of Evil Dead was very much on brand with Bruce Campbell's Evil Dead. Mia loses her hand, she has to stick the chainsaw on it, she kills the Evil Dead creature with a chainsaw, and I always saw Bruce Campbell showing up and just going, groovy. I always viewed that as just a little bit of an Easter egg. Okay, so Grindhouse, I had a feeling it might have been a little meh. That's not where I wanted to see it. I wanted to watch this because you know me. I love talking about movies. That's why I wanted to watch it. I had a feeling, WhatCulture is dicey at best when it comes to their videos. But it was about movies, and I love talking about movies. Win. It was a win for me.